10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, episode 271. Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 271 of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us once again. We are going to be doing our Tune of the Month episode this month, and we're going to do a great Antonio Carlos Jobim tune called Dindi. We are going to talk about a couple of the chords that really lend itself to working on triads over this particular tune, and just talk about some phrasing and ways to get better at soloing in general. So before we jump into the show, just a reminder that you can get the PDF to this episode and every other episode that we've ever done by going to our Patreon site. If you're not sure what Patreon is, it allows this podcast to be listener supported. If you've been listening to the show for a while, you know that there are no advertisements on this show, and the way that we keep it up and running is from listeners like you donating a small amount every month in exchange for those helpful practice materials and some extras that we always put up on the website over there. So you can find that by going to our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com, clicking on one of the Patreon banners, getting yourself signed up today for instant access. Wanted to give a quick shout out to Trent for upping his donation from $3 to $5 this month for those added benefits. So again, 10minutejazzlesson.com, click on one of the Patreon banners, get yourself signed up today. All right, so as I mentioned, we are going to be looking at a great Antonio Carlos Jobim tune called Dindi today, one of my favorite tunes to play over, and I think that the opening chord changes in this tune will really play into some of the triad exercises that we've been talking about this month and give you some opportunity to play some of the newfound skills that you have on the triads. So hopefully you've been working on some of those major triad exercises and you're starting to develop some fluency in your major triads. You're able to go in between keys pretty rapidly, and you've got a really good handle on manipulating major triads in all 12 keys. So if we look on the PDF at the first couple of chords, this is where we're really going to start to use some of this triad material, and I'll talk about why it works so well. So if we look at the first two chords in this tune, what we have is we have two major chords a whole step apart. We go from concert E flat major 7 to begin the tune, down to concert D flat major 7 after that. Then after we have that concert D flat major 7, we actually go back to a concert E flat major 7. So the effect that we get in the first three measures of the tune is we go from E flat major, down to D flat major, back up to E flat major. And this, in my mind, when we just have these chords that are a whole step away from each other, it really, really helps to basically just outline these shapes in the most basic way possible. So this gives us a perfect opportunity to use our triad shapes and figure out a way to play plain old major triads in an interesting fashion over these three measures. Now, the rest of the tune has a little bit more traditional harmony, and you can study a whole bunch of concepts over the rest of the chord progression. But if over the three A sections, this is an A, tune, you really focus on those first three measures of those major chords moving in whole steps, that can be a great place to actually put into action playing those major triads and having it sound pretty good. You know, in some places, major triads work better than others, and I was searching for a tune this month that would really lend itself to that, and this tune immediately came to mind. All right, so let me play the etude for you one time through so that you can hear some of that triadic movement in action. Now, what I want you to look at is the first three measures are exclusively major triads over those chords. In measure 9, 10, and 11, I move away from the triads a little bit. And the reason that I did that was because as I was writing the etude and coming up with the statement I wanted to make, it just didn't work there. It didn't fit in with the flow of the solo. So there I'm using a little bit more of an outline of the entire chord, 1, 3, 5, and 7. But then if you look down at measures 25, 26, 27, I've gone back to using only the 3-note major triad. So you've got it 1, 2, 3, 25, 26, and 27 could be great examples of how to use some of those triads, get the sound in your ear before you go and try to do the exact same thing. So let's play the etude and show you what this is all about. Here we go. So hopefully you can hear where those triads really came into play at the beginning and then during the last A section. So at the first one, all I'm doing is I'm literally just using some syncopated rhythm to make the triad more interesting. And I'm using a root position triad in measure 1, and then in measure 2, I'm using a verse inversion triad. And again, just using some syncopated rhythms to make it more interesting. And then in measure 3, just straight up playing that E flat concert major triad. And then at the end, I do use the 9th and kind of exit that triadic sound when I'm getting ready to go into the different sound. So here's that little snippet that I was just talking about. Now, can you hear how the chord changes are kind of doing the work for me? So that is why I chose this tune, because as those chords move in that really interesting way, that whole step motion, I'm able to just use something as simple as a 3-note structure, and it sounds great. It sounds great. It might take a little bit of work to decide the best way to use it, but once you can do that fluently, it's easy to just use those simple structures and sound really good. So the other place where we use them was 25, 26, 27. You're going to notice that those are just straight up triads as well. Here's what that little section sounds like isolated from the rest of the etude. So you can hear it's the same sound as the original example that I played for you. Now, you will also notice that there are a couple of other Easter egg triadic sections, so look for those when you're studying the etude. And another thing that I want to mention on this is the changes to the bridge are really interesting, and they're not going to make much sense if you don't learn the melody. So I want to encourage you to learn the melody on this tune right away as you're studying the etude and as you're studying the chord changes. Learn the melody as well, because the whole package is going to make just so much more sense if you've studied that melody, especially the bridge. The chords will suddenly make a ton of sense. Whereas if you didn't know the melody, you might be going, what the heck is going on here with these chord changes? And as I was writing this etude, I really had the melody kind of floating through my head because it's just such a beautiful melody, one of my favorites of all time. And I think it'll really inform your improvisation over this tune if you know the melody really well. Okay, so at the end of the episode, I'm going to go through the etude one more time, play it for you. If you have any questions on this or any of the concepts that we've talked about, please get in touch with me on the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Community Facebook group, or you can always email me at 10minutejazzlesson@gmail.com. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. You will notice that there is one more episode this month. There are 5 Fridays in the month of July. I'm going to try something brand new next week for that 5th episode of the month. So make sure that you stay tuned. Hopefully it will be something that you're interested in and that we can keep doing when there's 5 episodes in a month. But yeah, we're going to try something new here on the show. So stay tuned next week for episode 272. Hope you're all doing well out there, staying safe and healthy as always. And we will see you next week with some brand new material. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.